officially welcome you all to the summer 2021 Big Book Boot Camp. So we are not going to be reading through the book first page to last page. We're going to be going through the book section by section. The way we're going to start is we're going to start with Bill's story because it sets the tone for Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a great intro for anyone who has never been here before. Then we are going to go through what is alcoholism? So we're going to talk a bit about the doctor's opinion, and we're going to cover step 1. And then we're going to go through step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And so we're going to go through it usually 1 hour at a time, except for step 4 and 5, because of course there's work to be done. So we're going to break it down. Do not be afraid. Step 4 around these parts rocks. So today we're going to start with an introduction to Alcoholics Anonymous and Bill's story. And the place we're going to go to first is the big book, obviously, because this is our textbook. And we're going to go to that title page. And mine is all mucked up, super mucked up. And it says, Alcoholics Anonymous, the story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. And the reason why we're starting there is because we can recover from alcoholism. When I first heard people introducing themselves as recovered alcoholics in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, it got my skin up. It got me all anxious. And I heard a lot of antipathy from other people about people who called themselves recovered alcoholics. The word recovered is actually in our book 23 times. The word recover is in our book 28 times. And the word recovering is in the book 2 times. We can recover. This is the purpose of this process. Now, we're never cured. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. And so I liken it to the flu. And we all know a lot about the flu these days. We've heard it all. So you can get the flu. And what do you do when you get the flu? Well, you follow certain steps. You get a lot of rest, you drink a lot of fluids, you eat healthier foods, and then you can recover from the flu. Are you cured never to get the flu again? No, but you can follow simple steps every day to help ensure that you don't get the flu. You can get a flu shot, right? You get immunized against the flu. You can eat healthy. You can dress appropriately for the weather. You remember your mother when you left the house when you were a teenager without a coat on? She's like, you're going to get sick. So we can follow certain steps. The same thing applies here in Alcoholics Anonymous. We can do certain things to get better, and then we need to maintain it so we don't get sick again. And if we don't maintain it, we get sick again. And what happens when we get sick? We drink, and we go fucking crazy. Oh yeah, for those new, I swear once in a while. Just don't be alarmed. Anybody want to talk about recovered? Our title page. Hands up. Deanna, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Deanna, and I'm an alcoholic. And thanks again, Kimberly, for doing this. And thanks for bringing us to the very first page and the word recovered, because yes, I also had the same reaction that you did when I heard people talk about recovered alcoholics. But learning that obviously, yes, we never recover from the allergy, just the hopeless, helpless state. And that to me is really the key part. And it's actually one of the first promises in the book is we can recover and get well, and that gives me hope, and I love to share this with other people. So thanks for starting this out.
Awesome. Oops, I hit your button again. I'm really bad with buttons, by the way, for those who knew. Technology is not my jam. All right, so now we're going to mosey on to the table of contents. We're only going to mosey here for a minute because we are going to circle, highlight, or asterisk, whatever you like, the stories in the back of the book with women. And I'm going to give you a really simple instruction from the appendix. We're not going to read the appendix today, but we're just going to use the instructions. So if we go to the first page of the table of contents, this is in the 4th edition. If you have anything other than the 4th edition, your numbers aren't going to match up. And that's your own homework to go find the ladies' stories, unless somebody in the book with a 3rd edition wants to post them in the chat for you, just to keep us moving. So the first story is story number 3, Women Suffer Too. Circle it, highlight it, or put a little star. The next one is story number 9, The Keys of the Kingdom. I also highly recommend Dr. Bob's Nightmare, which we read last week, for anyone who hasn't read it. And then we go to part 2, They Stopped in Time. We're going to circle, highlight, or star number 2, Fear of Fear. Number 3, The Housewife Who Drank at Home. Number 5, My Chance to Live. Number 6, Student of Life. Number 7, Crossing the River of Denial. Number 8, Because I'm an Alcoholic. Flip the page. Number 12, Winner Takes All. Number 14, The Perpetual Quest. Off to part 3. Number 4, Listening to the Wind. And that final page, number 10, Empty on the Inside. Number 12, Another Chance. And number 14, an awesome 14 is Freedom from Bondage. So my favorites are Keys of the Kingdom and Freedom from Bondage. Those are my 2 personal favorites. But those, ladies, are all of the stories in the back of the book which relate to women. And so this is a ladies group. We are all ladies, or those who identify as ladies. So the instructions can actually be found in the preface. And it's at the bottom of the 2nd page of the preface, and it tells you what you should do with the stories. So you should read them, and then you want to look for these 3 things. Yes, that happened to me. Or more important, yes, I've felt like that. Or most important, yes, I believe this program can work for me too. So those are the instructions for the stories. And if you think about when this book was written in the 1930s, we didn't have thousands of meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. We didn't have big book studies. They mailed you this book. And what you had to do was read it yourself and hope that a traveling man would come to your town that you could connect with. Or you would send letters back and forth with New York asking questions. So they had instructions. Read the stories in the back and see if you can find those 3 things. And the most important one is, I think this can work for me too. And so we're going to read what is my favorite story in the big book, Bill's story, to start us off. A lot of people say, look for yourself in Bill's story, but we got to remember, Bill's a middle-class white guy in the 1930s. I'm not going to relate a lot to him, but there's certain things in his alcoholism and his journey that we might relate to. But I love reading this story because it's the story of how Alcoholics Anonymous became what it is. So that's what we're going to do today. It usually takes me 2 hours to read this and talk and discuss. So we will probably do it today and Monday, and then we'll start step 1 and talk about what is an alcoholic next Wednesday. But stick around for Bill's story because there's so much good stuff, including my favorite page in the big book. My favorite page is page 14. I've done a whole hour talk on it. All right, does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns before we start on anything we've done up to this point? There are no stupid questions here. You can only be too
I was just going to suggest that maybe slow down just a second or two and let people know which pages that you were just reading the table of contents for the newcomers that don't have a clue, because that could be a little confusing. I don't know if you were and I missed that. Kim?
Okay. Did everybody get the table of contents, the highlights?
No, I didn't. That's what I was going to ask you. Same thing, Kim.
All
I
right.
didn't get all of it.
Okay. So we also have a Facebook page too. So maybe Della will pop that or Marianne will pop that in. And then if we have questions too there. So the table of contents again. So part 1 is story number 3, The Women Suffer Too. Story number 9, Keys of the Kingdom. Part 2, story number 2, Fear of Fear. Number 3, The Housewife Who Drank at Home. Number 5, My Chance to Live. Number 6, The Student of Life. 7, Crossing the River of Denial. 8, Because I'm an Alcoholic. 12, Winner Takes All. 14, Perpetual Quest. Part 3, Listening to the Wind, number 4. And then on the next page, 10, Empty on the Inside. 12, Another Chance. And 14, Freedom from Bondage. The table of contents is followed by the preface on the bottom of the second page of the preface, which is page XII. And it is, yes, that happened to me. Yes, I felt like that. And yes, I believe this program can work for me too. And if Della will remind me, I'll make up a little Canva and do it real pretty and put it in the Facebook group. Della will remind me. She's like my bestest assistant ever. All right, so Bill's story, chapter 1, page 1. And we will do the doctor's opinion, but we'll do that when we're talking step 1. We're going to do doctor's opinion and more about alcoholism at the same time. We're going to introduce with Bill's story. Is everybody following along? Awesome. Good. Okay. So Bill's story. War fever ran high in the New England town to which we knew young officers from Plattsburgh were assigned, and we were flattered when the first citizens took us to their homes, making us feel heroic. Here was love, applause, war, moments sublime with intervals hilarious. I was part of life at last. And in the midst of my excitement, I discovered liquor. I forgot the strong warnings and the prejudices of my people concerning drink. In time, we sailed for over there. I was very lonely and again turned to alcohol. We landed in England. I visited Winchester Cathedral. Much moved, I wandered outside. My attention was caught by a doggerel on an old tombstone. Here lies a Hampshire grenadier who caught his death drinking cold small beer. A good soldier is never forgot, whether he dieth by musket or by pot. Ominous warning, which I failed to heed. 22 and a veteran of foreign wars, I went home at last. I fancied myself a leader, for had not the men of my battery given me a special token of appreciation? My talent for leadership, I imagined, would place me at the head of vast enterprises, which I would manage with the utmost assurance. So I encourage you to write along and highlight as you see things or things pop out at you. And the one thing that pops out at me on this page is his ego. He's a little bit full of himself. You know, I'm going to be a leader. I'm getting this applause. All my men love me. I'm going to go back and I'm going to be a success, right? He had that drive. Also, I find on here the strong warning and prejudices of his people. That gives us a little hint that there was maybe some alcoholism or some problems with alcohol that ran in his family. You know, if I look back on my family life, there was no alcoholism in my family. Well, there was no alcohol at all. I never noticed that until I was 42. You know, and then come to find out my grandma was a member of the Sons of Temperance and signed a temperance pledge, which is a pledge not to drink. So there was some warnings in my family too that I failed to heed as well. And the one that's highlighted bright pink on this page for me is I was very lonely and again turned to alcohol. I've felt that. I've done that. Been lonely and picked up a drink. So those are the things that popped out for me. Anybody want to raise their hand and talk about their experience with page 1? We'll do like 2 or 3 shares per page. Or we'll keep reading. Deanna, go ahead.
Sorry. What stuck out for me was in the very beginning paragraph where he's talking about, you know, when he's surrounded by love and applause and war and moments of sublime with intervals hilarious. And that very part, that next part, I was part of life at last. That brings me personally back to my drinking days of now I'm a part of something. And that really hit me when we first read this.
Thank you, Deanna. Hang on, I just got to give the code. What's the code? Okay, you guys got it. Good. Okay, sorry. All right, page 2. This page is really marked up. I took a night law course and obtained employment as an investigator for a surety company. The drive for success was on. I'd prove to the world that I was important. My work took me about Wall Street, and little by little, I became interested in the market. Many people lost money, but some became very rich. Why not I? I studied economics and business, as well as law. Potential alcoholic that I was, I nearly failed my law course. At one of the finals, I was too drunk to think or write. Though my drinking was not yet continuous, it disturbed my wife. We had long talks when I would still her forebodings by telling her that men of great genius conceived their best projects when drunk, that the most majestic constructions of philosophic thought were so derived. By the time I had completed the course, I knew the law was not for me. The inviting maelstrom of Wall Street had me in its grip. Business and financial leaders were my heroes. Out of this alloy of drink and speculation, I commenced to forge the weapon that would one day turn in its flight like a boomerang and all but cut me to ribbons. Living modestly, my wife and I saved $1,000. It went into certain securities then cheap and rather unpopular. I rightly imagined that they would someday have a great rise. I failed to persuade my broker friends to send me out looking over factories and managements, but my wife and I decided to go anyways. I had developed a theory that most people lost money on the stocks through ignorance of markets. I discovered many more reasons later on. A little bit more of his ego in there, but I can relate a lot to this. You know, I grew up in a modest family, and I had that drive to success. I wanted to earn the money. I wanted to get the position. I wanted to climb the corporate ladder. I did many, many different courses in school because I had different ideas of what I wanted to do with my life, and I never completed them. I went to dental hygiene school. I took my floral course. I thought I wanted to be a teacher, and then I ended up just getting a random business degree, right? Like I had all these wild ideas. And then I remember all those best ideas I had when drunk. Who had great ideas at like 3 a.m. when they were drunk as a skunk? Oh, I was going to do all sorts of things, right? I'm going to change the world, don't you know? And in the next morning, I was like, oh, what was I talking about last night? I hope nobody brings it up again, right? All the time. So, you know, men of great genius think great things in the middle of the night. And I had those heroes, right? I looked up at people who had money, who had fame. You know, hero worshiping was huge for me. I wanted to be the best of the best. And I've told people before in here, like, the more keys on my keychain, the more important I was. And I had to wear my keychain on one of those little telephone cordy things so you knew I had those keys. I had to wear that name tag that showed I was the manager, right? I needed the corner office with my plaque on the door, and I signed my email with my position, right? Because that's how I identified. So I get this page a lot. Anybody else get this page? Anybody else take anything out of this page? Go ahead, Katie.
I can relate to this page a lot. I mean, I grew up with 20 cousins and was the 4.0 student, and then I knew I wanted to go to this college and knew where I wanted to go, and I thought that if I got all of those things and got all of those degrees, that then I would be happy. And it was really just my egocentric self just being if I have this, then I'll be happy, when really, no. And all of my other cousins who drastically failed and did their feelings way back in high school are doing great now. But now, yeah, I'm here. So I can relate a lot with this in terms of just wanting the next best job, looking for that promotion, and doing all of that. So I could relate to that a lot.
Absolutely. Looking for that next thing to make me happy or complete me or make me feel like I'm good enough. Kelly D, hello.
Hi, Kimberly. Hi, everybody. My name is Kelly. I'm an alcoholic. It's great to be here with you ladies. Thank you, Kim, for doing this. This is great. Never gets old. Anyway, I got what you said about the great ideas at night and what I was going to be and, who I was going to be when I grew up, it was all just a self-lie. And I did worship. I was in the medical field before I became the CEO of my house, and I take care of my children today, and I'm home. But I worshiped these neurologists, and there was this, I worked in White Plains, and I was running and tagging all these neurologists, and I had this portable phone, and they all had to know that I had this special phone for Kelly, and look at me calling in all the prescriptions, and I get to be in control and call everybody back with their results, their MRI results. I thought I had arrived. And then later on, when I got sober, I found out that I was being so taken advantage of. I wasn't getting paid for what I was doing, and it was all this self-lie that I had. And the neurologists that I worked for, 3 out of the 6, were telling me to put some, one used to say, his French, he said, Kelly, you got to put some more white powder into it. You have to move faster. And I couldn't believe it. Or there was another doctor, he would tell me, you need to drink at night to relax yourself. Just drink. He tells patients, you got to drink at night to calm yourself down. And then the drug closet, out came all the prescriptions and the drugs, and we used to fight over them. So, I thought these men were great men and they were specialists. And then I learned in AA that, doesn't matter, Park Avenue, Park Bench, money, no money. This disease does not discriminate. So anyway, thanks. This is great.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Regina?
Hi, I'm Regina. I'm an alcoholic. Kelly, you crack me up. The one thing that stood out to me on this page was the idea that he said business and financial leaders were my heroes. I took that as if, business and financial leaders were his God. And that he had more faith in himself than he had in God, that this was all about him. And look at me, look how exciting and how important I am, the great I am. And, I also have a note here. I was also in the corporate world. What was my quality of life like while I was in the corporate job? It wasn't great. There was no balance. I was constantly trying to get ahead. And it just became too much for me. So yeah, this was a really good reminder that, he made people in his, his heroes, his God, and he didn't have a God. It appeared at this point. Thanks.
Right. Absolutely. And in that, and make it to whatever relates to you. If you weren't in the corporate world and you weren't looking up to corporate professionals, it could apply to McDonald's. When I worked at McDonald's, I couldn't just be the fry girl. I had to get promoted to crew trainer. And then I had to be the head drive-through girl. There was always a hierarchy that I had to be the best at, And when I was working in the clubs, I had to be the it girl, the number 1 girl, not the number 3 girl, right? There was always something I had to be. If I was dating a guy, he had to be the best drug dealer, not the little schlacky, right? I had to go for the full gang member, not the fucking hang around, right? It doesn't matter if you don't relate to corporate or that. I got it all in my story. I've been everywhere. I'm just I'm made for this program. Diane.
Hi, thank you very much. Good to see you. And I guess I have to represent the other side of the coin. You know, I've never been a success my whole life. And it actually, I'm hearing everybody talk. I laughed. I said, I think everyone in AA is a CEO. That's just my anger talking. But I always feel like I was this and I was that. You know, I was the doctor, I was a lawyer, I was an Indian chief aspect. And I feel like, well, I just had no confidence ever. I didn't have I guess my drinking started so young. I just never envisioned myself doing anything, oddly enough. And even though I came from middle-class parents who were kind of fun and achievers, I would say, so I feel really bad. It's just putting it out there for those who aren't one of the CEO types, and just like myself, you sort of putzed through and didn't do anything extraordinarily successful. Plus I'm not even a nice person inside, so I feel unsuccessful completely. But I just want to put it out there that I guess, I don't know what happened. Maybe it was because I grew up in the 70s. Maybe 70s was more of no one was paying attention. But not blame it on the 70s. I don't know what happened. I just didn't have confidence, I guess. But it is a fantasy. Who doesn't want to be successful, right? But never happened, really. So anyway, just saying, it does sound like something hard to know what to move towards it. And now I am talking backwards. So thanks. I hope it made sense.
Hang on, Diane. I want this session, this boot camp, we are breaking through with Diane. It's my goal. So, okay, Diane, instead of looking for the differences, let's look for the similarities on this page. Can you look for the hero worship?
Yes.
See? You identify with that, right?
Right.
There we go. So that's the thing. This page isn't talking about us succeeding. It's talking about us always looking to other people and saying, I want more, I'm not good enough. And you have that. You're on this page, yes. Right?
Correct. I am on this page.
Okay, so no more saying I was never a success. Say, I can agree that I hero worshipped and I always wanted to be better than I was. Yes?
Somebody but me. Yes, yes.
Awesome. Diane is on this page.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Wendy, I'm going to have to save you for the next page because we're trying to keep her moving. So your next page in it.
I was kind of going to take back what I was saying anyway after you said all good. You don't need that.
Perfect. Moving, right? See, it works itself out every time. I'm like, okay, we're going to try to keep the 2 or 3 shares because we got to take us like 10 days to read 2 pages. We gave up our positions and off we roared on a motorcycle. The sidecar stuffed with the tent, blankets, a change of clothes, and 3 huge volumes of a financial reference service. So even though everybody said, don't go, Bill, you don't know what you're talking about, he's like, come on, honey. I know, let's go. And this is where we get introduced to Lois, Bill's wife, and God love Lois. If I could ever have an hour with her on a park bench, man, that's the girl I'd want to talk to. Our friends thought a lunacy commission should be appointed. Perhaps they were right. I had some success at speculation, so we had a little money. But we once worked on a farm for a month to avoid drawing on our small capital. That was the last honest manual labor on my part for many a day. At the end of it, my reports to Wall Street procured me a position there and the use of a large expense account. The exercise of an option brought in more money, leaving us with a profit of several $1,000s for that year. For the next few years, fortune threw money and applause my way. I had arrived. My judgment and ideas were followed by many to the tune of paper millions. The great boom of the late 20s was seething and swelling. Drinking was taking an important and exhilarating part in my life. There was talk in the jazz places uptown. Everyone spent in thousands and chattered in millions. Scoffers could scoff and be damned. I made a host of fair weather friends. My drinking assumed more serious proportions, continuing all day and almost every night. The remonstrances of my friends terminated in a row, and I became a lone wolf. There were many unhappy scenes in our sumptuous apartment. There had been no real infidelity, for loyalty to my wife, helped at times by extreme drunkenness, kept me out of those scrapes. God love Bill. He was a womanizer, for those who don't know. And if we're in, I said this joke in the co-ed, and the guys didn't take to it as much as the ladies, but I'm sorry. He had whiskey dick. He couldn't get it hard, so he couldn't cheat on his wife. It says it right in the book. I was helped at times by extreme drunkenness. It didn't work. Okay, we get it. So anyways, but this is where you can see his pride and his ego again, where he's like, extreme loyalness. I never really cheated on my wife. Like, he's better than. It's like, yeah, but you tried. You did other stuff. Like, we know. Come on now. Anyway, so yes, I can relate to this page as well, where it's like that last bit of honest manual labor, right? And it is. I always liked the easier, softer, faster way to make money, right? I didn't want to work a 40-hour-a-week job. If I can work at the bar at night, I can drink at the bar and do what I do at the bar, and I can make fast money, right? Life in the fast lane is a lot more appealing than having to slave all day at a job. And I convinced myself that I was better than people who had a regular job. I'm a single mom. I'm going to school. I'm home during the day with my child. I go to work at the bar while my child is sleeping. You leave your child at daycare. I'm better than you. I convinced myself that lie. That I am better than someone working a Monday to Friday 9-to-5 job because they're putting their kids in daycare. Meanwhile, I'm just a rampant alcoholic running around the bars, making fast money, wasting it just as quick as it comes in, right? But I'm better than you. I convinced myself that. And now for those that can relate, that whole I have arrived, right? I was living in Vancouver in a fancy apartment. I had a nanny. I had a nice car. I had a fancy boyfriend. I had the Louis Vuitton purses. I had arrived. I never waited in line anywhere I went. People knew who I was. I thought I was the cat's meow. I had that same experience in the corporate world. I went up the corporate ladder. I would go places and people would be like, oh, that's Kimberly. Oh, they were scared shitless of me because I was a big bitch. I would squish anybody I could to get to the top. That was my MO. I was once someone said, oh, Kim, you know, your review, you're very unapproachable. I'm like, me? Unapproachable? I'm like the friendliest person. Oh yeah, if you're on my side, but if you don't agree with me, I'm a cow, right? So, but for those who maybe like a Diane don't understand that whole success with corporate, and that they're looking for the differences instead of the similarities. The similarities can be that one point in your life where you felt like you had it all, where you felt like you had your shit together. You know, you felt like it was good. That's that moment, right? Like that moment where you're like, oh, this is great. Like I've got green grass, the sun is shining, I feel really good about life. Doesn't measure by success. It's that feeling, you know, this is the life. This is awesome. You got the cute boyfriend. Maybe you're going to the beach on the week, whatever it is for you, that I've arrived. And you hit that mark and then you never hit it again, right? It's that moment's fleeting. It's gone and we don't feel it ever again. Della.
Good morning, ladies. Della, recovering alcoholic. Now, what I've heard is that the sidecar, yes, it was filled with tents, but it was also filled with Bill, because Bill was too drunk to drive the motorcycle. So Lois drove the motorcycle, Bill sat in the sidecar, and was stuffed full of tents in his financial books. And if I recall correctly, he also left Lois in the tent when they were camping so he would go off and do his business deals. Oh, Bill, I love you, but you know what? And then, yeah, there was no real infidelity. Like, oh, ego. Thanks, Kim.
Absolutely. And the only reason Lois went along was to babysit her drunk-ass husband. Like, let's be honest. That's the only reason she went. She's like, you're a nut job, but okay. And what happens is he goes on this thing. He had some success. So what happens? He's like, see, I told you. I'm like, you were just lucky, right? But in his mind, he's like, y'all told me I was wrong. I showed you. Now I have this huge expense account. Look at me, right? So it kind of inflates his ego a little bit. All right, let's see what happens. In 1929, I contracted Gulf fever. We went at once to the country, my wife to applaud while I started to take over Walter Hagen. Liquor caught up with me much faster than I came up behind Walter. I became jittery in the morning. Golf permitted drinking every day and every night. It was fun to caroom around the exclusive course which I had inspired such awe in me as a lad. I acquired the impeccable coat of tan one sees upon the well-to-do. The local banker watched me whirl fat checks in and out of his till with amused skepticism. Abruptly, in October 1929, hell broke loose on the New York Stock Exchange. After one of those days of inferno, I wobbled from a hotel bar to a brokerage office. It was 8 o'clock, 5 hours after the market had closed. The ticker still clattered. I was staring at an inch of the tape which bore the inscription XYZ negative 32. It had been 52 that morning. I was finished, and so were many friends. The papers reported men jumping to death from the towers of high finance. That disgusted me. I would not jump. I went back to the bar. My friends had dropped several million since 10 o'clock. So what? Tomorrow was another day. As I drank, the old fierce determination to win came back. The next morning, I telephoned a friend in Montreal. He had plenty of money left, and I thought I had better go to Canada. By the following spring, we were living in our accustomed style. I felt like Napoleon returning from Elba. No St. Helena for me. But drinking caught up with me again, and my generous friend had to let me go. This time, we stayed broke. So here we can see he hit that I have arrived moment. And now we can see that kind of fizzling, right? Like he hit that life is amazing. But he can't maintain that amazing life. He's going to the golf course. He's like, he aspired to be this fancy golfer with a nice tan and, taking over Walter Hagen. But yet, alcohol's taking over. And I can relate to that too. Life was good, but I was the girl that drank too much at the party. I was the girl that drank too much at the business dinner. I was the girl at the birthday party that made a mess of herself, right? I couldn't keep up appearances. And here, Bill's keeping up with the appearances is starting to fall apart. And of course, the stock market broke or crashed in 1929. And that's actually a really important piece of the Alcoholics Anonymous story for a number of reasons. That sent Dr. Silkworth on a different trajectory in his life, which we're going to learn about next week when we start talking about Dr. Silkworth and alcoholism as a disease. So Dr. Silkworth lost his job as a result of that stock market crash, and Bill's having this moment where he's starting to go. But in this paragraph, you can hear Bill's got some sort of faith, right? He doesn't have a faith in God. He doesn't have a faith in, the universal power. But he's got some sort of faith there because he doesn't jump. Maybe it's his ego and that chip on his shoulder that keeps him from jumping. But he's disgusted by those men who jumped because they're weak, right? He looks down on them and he says, I will not jump. Tomorrow's another day. So he's got some sort of faith that it's going to be okay based on himself, which we're going to find out how that goes. But, that's it. And then, of course, he had a new scam. He's like, I got a friend in Montreal that's got some money. Let's call him up and swindle a deal. Anybody ever swindled the deal around here? Oh, so-and-so's got some money. Maybe I'll, tag along with them for a bit and see how that goes, right? Like, we're really good tagger-oners, hanger-oners, manipulators, whatever you want to call it. Wendy, your hand's up.
That might have been by accident, but
you look so surprised.
I was just thinking back. 2 pages. I was looking back 2 pages, actually. And when he went off on the motorcycle with all his belongings, I put down next to there, trying the geographical cure. That's what made me think of that, right? Like going from place to place. Yes, I know he was doing this mainly for work and stuff, but yeah, that just made me think of the geographical cure, and I was doing that before I even knew what I was doing, trying to get away from self.
Right, and now he's going to Montreal too, right? So now he's going to Montreal. They move around a lot. We're going to hear about that as we go. So now we're going to start to get into the progressive nature of our disease. So we can see how, life was good. He was young. He had like it is, and he was worshiping. Now he's kind of arrived at where he thought he wanted to be happy, but he overshoots the mark. And now, the stock market's changed. His friend tells him to beat it. Anybody know like some friends that stopped hanging out with you at a certain point in your drinking career? This is where we're at right now. So his friends are kind of like, meh, you're a bit of a nightmare. You're a hot mess there, Bill. Let's see what happens. Looks good. We went to live with my wife's parents. Every independent, successful businessman loves to do that. I found a job, and then I lost it as the result of a brawl with a taxi driver. Mercifully, no one could guess that I was to have no real employment for 5 years, or hardly draw a sober breath. My wife began to work in a department store, coming home exhausted to find me drunk. I became an unwelcome hanger-on at brokerage places. Liquor ceased to be a luxury. It became a necessity. Bathtub gin, 2 bottles a day, often 3, got to be routine. Sometimes a small deal would net a few $100s, and I would pay my bills at the bars and delicatessens. This went on endlessly, and I began to waken very early in the morning, shaking violently. A tumbler full of gin followed by a half-dozen bottles of beer would be required if I were to eat any breakfast. Nevertheless, I still thought I could control the situation, and there were periods of sobriety which renewed my wife's hope. Gradually, things got worse. The house was taken over by the mortgage holder. My mother-in-law died, and my wife and father-in-law became ill. Then I got a promising business opportunity. Stocks were at the low point of 1932, and I had somehow formed a group to buy. I was to share generously in the profits. Then I went on a prodigious bender, and the chance vanished. I woke up. This had to be stopped. I saw I could not take so much as one drink. I was through forever. Before then, I had written lots of sweet promises, but my wife happily observed that this time I meant business. So I did. All right, so here he goes. He gets a job, then he gets a fight with a cab driver, and he gets fired. So what happens is he just becomes a drunk. And poor Lois goes to work in a department store selling dresses to the same ladies she used to go and probably have tea and crumpets with, or whatever they did back then, right? And so she's humbled herself. And she's working all day selling dresses to these people that were probably once her friends and socialites. And then she's coming home to find his drunk ass on the couch, right? So, and he's at that point where liquor's not a luxury anymore. He needs it. For me, that is not part of my story. I was never a jittery morning drinker, but I had other substitutes. Myself, I had other substitutes. I like pills, right? And I'm a functioning alcoholic. I don't drink in the daytime. I go to my job. I got things to get me through my day. I got my anti-anxiety pills. I got my antidepressants. I take some pain pills during the day. I really like those pain pills during the day. It made the daytime way more tolerable, right? So yeah, I can't relate to drinking in the morning, but I had a different solution in the daytime, and I needed that to get through my day. But then sure enough, 4:30 hits and I'm on the wine, right? So everybody's experience is going to be different. But this is that progressive nature where it's like, okay, got a little bit out of control. Whatever that looks like for you. And then, of course, he gets that promising business opportunity. He's got a new little stock scam going, but what does he do? He gets drunk. And so who here has said those words? Never, ever, ever drinking again. Never. I mean business. I am never, ever, ever drinking again. That's what Bill said. He means business. Deanna.
So the first part of what you read that always makes me think about, Bill's like step one. You see the unmanageability like everywhere. And he still has that. He's not tireless though, because he says right in there, I still thought I could control the situation. So he is like self will run riot. Yeah, everything's going on around him that's terrible, but I got this. But he still kind of has that thing about him. And I kind of remember having that about me too. So it's just very clear here.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, I surrounded myself with worse off alcoholics than myself. So I'm pointing my finger at my husband. I don't have a problem. Look at him. Look at her. Look at that girl at work getting suspended. At least I'm getting to work on time. I'm hiding it better than her. She's got a problem, not me. So for me, that was my little muse, right? I hid behind other people. All right, so he's quit for good, remember? He's finished. He means business. Shortly afterward, I came home drunk. Yeah. There had been no fight. Where had been my high resolve? I simply didn't know. It hadn't even come to mind. Someone had pushed a drink my way and I had taken it. Was I crazy? I began to wonder, for such an appalling lack of perspective seemed near being just that. Renewing my resolve, I tried again. Some time passed, and confidence began to be replaced by cocksuredness. I could laugh at the gin mills. Now I had what it takes. One day I walked into a cafe to telephone. In no time, I was beating on the bar, asking myself how it happened. As the whiskey rose to my head, I told myself I would manage better next time, but I might as well get good and drunk then. And I did. The remorse, the horror, the hopelessness of the next morning are unforgettable. The courage to do battle was not there. My brain raced uncontrollably, and there was a terrible sense of impending calamity. I hardly dared cross the street, lest I collapse and be run down by an early morning truck, for it was scarcely daylight. An all-night place supplied me with a dozen glasses of ale. My writhing nerves were still at last. A morning paper told me the market had gone to hell again. Well, so had I. The market would recover, but I wouldn't. That was a hard thought. Should I kill myself? No, not now. Then a mental fog settled down. Gin would fix that. So 2 bottles and oblivion. So here we have Bill's first solution to his drinking problem. Bill's first solution to his drinking problem is self-will. He's like, I'm going to quit. I can do this. I'm going to tell myself again, I'm going to not drink. And he does this. And he repeats it a few times. He quits for a bit. And he's like, I got this. I'm good. And then, bam, he's drinking. And he's beating his head on the bar. And he's like, I don't know how I did this. I said I wasn't going to drink again. I've tried self-will. I've tried that Sunday morning hangover day. And you're like sitting there hugging the toilet going, I am never, ever, ever going to drink again. Never. And then, somehow you feel a little better and you think, well, Bloody Mary or a Caesar will fix it. We'll just have Bloody Mary or a Caesar. And then you kind of feel better and you're not feeling yucky anymore. And you're like, okay, that was terrible. I'm never going to drink again. I just can't do it. I humiliated myself so bad. I am not going to drink again. And you might go a week. You might go 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden, for some reason that you can't explain, I think it's a good idea to have a drink. Usually we have a really good reason. Well, That Saturday, I didn't eat dinner. This week, I'm going to have some dinner first, and I'm going to make sure I have a full tummy. My personal favorite, I'm going to drink water in between. That was my problem. I didn't drink water in between. So I convinced myself that it's going to be different this time. Anybody relate to that? All right, so Bill's first solution here was self-will. It's like, I'm going to stop. I got this. I'm good. And what happens over and over and over again, and I can share it because I've had the same experience, didn't work. I ended up drinking for some time. Anybody want to share on that? Della.
What I've noticed, now going through books many times, amazing things just pop up. There's so many I's in Bill's story. And when we get further onto the book, it's us and we and them. And it's like, I circled in Bill's story, and it's amazing how many I's I can find in Bill's story. But then, as we carry on, the ego kind of deflates, and he talks about the we. So thanks.
Absolutely. Hang on, sorry. 3 minutes. I'm not going to keep reading. Does anybody else want to share? Marla, go ahead.
Thank you. I think what is also, I noticed that also, so thanks, Della, for pointing out. But also, why didn't I think this was crazy behavior? You know, I just redoubled my efforts. Anybody else, like I'm reading it today going, oh my gosh, you know, that's insane. But no, at the time, it just seemed like, well, we'll just go to the next one. Oh, not that solution. And then I'd also blame it on the people I was with. You know, if I didn't hang around with them, I wouldn't drink that much. You know, I'll drink like a lady, you know, and I think farther in it says more. But yeah, that's what struck today as this is just super crazy. And, but no, I'll just try to figure it out. Anything but stopping drinking.
Absolutely. I'd get dressed right up. I'm going to go out and I'm going to be classy tonight.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to be so classy tonight. And then somewhere along the line, the trucker came out. I don't know what happened. Marianne.
Hi, Marianne, alcoholic. I love this, you know, I woke up, this had to be, stopped. I wrote all of these wonderful promises to my wife. Reading Pass It On, he wrote those sweet promises in the freaking Bible to his wife. Like, he had this, like, I guess a little bit of the well, maybe if I write in the Bible, maybe God will help me, but he didn't realize it back then. I just thought that was hysterical, because he wrote it in the book right that way. And yes, his self-will, self-will ran riot. Absolutely. That's all I have.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. How many sweet promises, right? Oh, I'm never, ever, ever, ever doing this again. Oh, I'm going to go to church. I am not going to hang out with those people. I am not going to go to that place. Oh, yeah. I'm not going to drink that alcohol because it was that alcohol that did it. We got lots of reasons. Therese?
Thank you so much, Teresa here, alcoholic. I just wanted to really claim my seat and, thank you for hosting this meeting. I've tried so many times to be a part of it, but unfortunately my schedule doesn't allow, and now I can be a part of it. And I heard today was the first day that you were starting from the beginning. So I thank you for that. But this brought me back to the craziness of, I'll start on Monday, or I'll do it when, or all of those excuses that I had. And of course, inevitably, once you have the first one, well, hell, I'm already drinking. I might as well just keep on drinking, right? Tomorrow will be a new day. And found out the hard way that, you just got to do it right now, willingness to do it and make up my mind when it comes to anything. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it now. It doesn't matter that it's, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, or 1 o'clock in the morning. Just do it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I messed up this weekend, so this weekend's out. I'll start next weekend. Geez Louise, we do the same thing with diets, right? Oh, I'm just going to have this one cupcake. I'll start again on Monday. Oh, well, then that's a moving target. I used to teach weight loss. Monday's a moving target. Monday never comes because it's always the next Monday, the next Monday. We do that, right? Oh, that moving target, it keeps moving. All right, ladies, so awesome to be back in the beginning of the book. I love the beginning of the book. I mean, the end of the book's good and all, but I love the work. It's my favorite thing. So that was our first day of the Big Book Boot Camp. We are going to continue on Bill's story, and then we're going to go right into step 1. We're going to learn about alcoholism. We're going to get step 1 done. So if you want to get through the steps, you want to get into the work, you want to get into the solutions, stick around because we're fast tracking. This is a boot camp. We are grabbing you and pull it along. The rule around here is no one's allowed to quit. So if you're here today, I expect to see you Monday. No one's allowed to quit. That's the rule around here. We want everyone to succeed. There are no stupid questions, and there's just you can just be too smart for this. That's the only thing. But you can't be too stupid. So I can't wait to see you guys all again on Monday. And we like to close with the Serenity Prayer. For those who haven't been here before, we usually hold our hands up like this, so at least it looks like we're holding hands. And we will unmute all. So invite your friends, invite your sponsees, invite the sick and suffering, and who's going to get us sober? God. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.